Hello everyone, and welcome to another This Week in Anthem. With the game now available worldwide, the Day 1 patch live, the first event and developer streams, Anthem is now out there and can't hide behind the veil of early access. But this is only the beginning, and over time I'm confident BioWare can smooth off the edges. With the game now officially in full release, everyone can now purchase Anthem, not just those with early access via Origin. Though its reception hasn't improved much, if at all. I don't agree with the sheer amount it's received, but much is warranted, which is its own deep dive I'll be getting into later this week. For now, let's take a look at what BioWare are doing to get Anthem back on track, starting with the Day 1 patch that dropped this week. The most immediately obvious should be the additional round of performance increases, lowering some of the main loading times, causes for disconnects, and numbers of gear actually being real. These improve the general experience for those just jumping into Anthem over the weekend and buff some of the damage if you've been playing since the early access launch. On top of these are a large list of general fixes that should help with the smoothness when going through screens, especially those at the end of expeditions. One of the key quality of life changes is the squad cohesion boundaries, the mechanic responsible for the game telling you you're too far away from objectives, unless you're the first one to touch it. After a few days of play, it's clear it has already helped, though the distance should be increased a bit more. This list is seriously long, touching on almost every aspect of the game and strange bugs, hopefully most of which you never got to see. Weird bugs in cutscenes, falling through floors, bosses now actually dropping a loot, and animation functioning as intended. Several of these deal with direct gameplay interaction, especially those with shields. If you've had any time with the endgame or Grandmaster difficulties in the early access phase, you'd have noticed that the enemy shields are huge, making encounters much harder than intended, many of which can regen their shields while being hit by attacks, something we don't have the luxury of as players. These shields should now be lowered on all difficulties, and lightning damage will now be more effective in general. For you Storm players out there, you may have felt yourself being shot right through your shields, another bug specific to Scar Scouts that has now been resolved. On top of these changes, Javelins have seen some noticeable damage buffs. Autocannon flat damage increased, Ranger Inferno Grenades buffed, Interceptor Cryo Glaives buffed, several Storm abilities and one nerf. Glacial Beam damage for the Storm has been slightly reduced, as the Ice Effect itself is already pretty strong. The Colossus specifically had some extra love to help counter the fact that its shield prevents nearly all its outgoing damage, making it deploy faster after abilities. You can activate it while rezzing down interceptors or other allies, and you should get knocked out the sky less when your shield breaks, because why would that happen in the first place? Since these fixes went into play, BioWare showed the first live event that took place over the weekend. Though unless you knew it was there from people talking about it, you probably had no idea it was even going on. In my experience, I didn't see this mentioned on the news page until the last day of the event, and that banner didn't explain what was going on or where the challenge associated to it was located in the journal. If I'm honest, I was really disappointed by this event, because it wasn't an event. It had no tie-in to the story, no characters in-game mentioned it, there was no information about it in the game, and the challenge tied to it was hidden in an obscure location. Not to mention that the event itself consisted of killing 4 titans that spawned on mostly static locations. They had 4 different names, but I couldn't tell why. They were just standard titans with different names. No unique abilities, no changes to the model or how it functioned, or any changes to their environments. So for me at least, the whole event felt flat and underwhelming. With the tools at their disposal, I was just hoping for so much more. If it hadn't been for Twitter, it's unlikely I would have even noticed it happened. I'd like to hear what you think, did you take part and did you enjoy it? On the plus side, it did offer a unique cosmetic final for completing it. So for those of you who like orange in your designs, this is a nice addition. Though if it was me making this event, I would have liked there to be more context, even if minimal. Perhaps the result of opening the 4 tombs in the story resulted in 4 titans awakening as the Anthem of Creation pushes back. That Fae herself warns us of the changes and prompts us with 4 mini missions. These then show on the freeplay map as unique objectives whenever active. The titans themselves would all be slightly altered to represent their personality or the tomb they're associated to, or aligned to different elements so that they're not all just fire, and that their environments and attacks represent this. Even these small changes make it clear to the players that an unusual event is happening, makes it clear as to where and what it is, and adds some flavour to both the lore and encounters. I'm not trying to be negative, as there is so much I enjoy in Anthem, which I feel has received harsh criticism, but I think that's because we know BioWare are capable of much more. That with just some extra time and attention to detail that we've seen from their previous titles could really elevate Anthem as a whole. These events are only small, but a perfect way to showcase these values. And for me, There Be Giants just didn't hit the mark, though I don't want to take anything away from those that did enjoy it. In addition to the event, the stream team Dream Team of Chad, Ben, Mike and Mark gave us another pre-launch livestream, answering some of the community's questions, responding to feedback, and laying out some of the plans for Anthem going forward, some of which I've already covered last week, with how the cosmetics for Anthem work, as they revealed plans to add in game-only rewards from completing strongholds. According to Chad and Ben, we'll also be seeing a more detailed 90-day plan, showing content types, events, rewards and other story details scheduled to drop in the next 3 months. And to many, this will be content that makes or breaks their time with Anthem. One specific change I'm really looking forward to see for the endgame is the inclusion of critical path missions to be played on higher difficulties, which should have been an obvious chunk of content to include from the beginning, but at least BioWare have listened to this feedback. Fortunately, rather than just adding them in with more health, they're going to go back and amend all the encounters, as the campaign missions scale up in enemy variety over time. By becoming legendary quality missions, they will drastically increase the variety of endgame and quick play options, something Anthem desperately needs right now. Especially with other games like The Division 2 on the horizon, though nothing is quite going to compare to flying around a tropical landscape. The last week or two has not been easy for the developers at BioWare, seeing a constant pressure from reviewers and fans as they critique everything from technical issues, plot devices, and the gameplay under a microscope. Despite the flaws Anthem has, I think they should be proud of what they've accomplished so far. And it's still early for Anthem, regardless on if you think this game is ready or not. It's here and hopefully to stay. Few games these days, and especially those in the new live service model, show as much potential as Anthem, and none of them had easy starts. Later this week, I'll be doing another breakdown on Anthem focused on the endgame, its highs, lows, and how it can be improved. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and experiences on the launch week for Anthem are, and what you think it needs to do to improve, if anything. While BioWare gather their feedback, I'll also be pulling together all the lore tidbits with my first lore and story breakdown coming out this week. Thanks for watching This Week in Anthem. If you found this useful, please leave a like, or a dislike if you prefer. You can support the channel by subscribing, and use the bell to be notified of future content as it goes live. Until next time, I've been Dante, thanks for watching.